Welcome to Breathing is Action, a meditative affirmation podcast aimed at reaching teens and adults, everyone, everywhere. I am your host, Macy. Today I am launching the second chapter, so let me refresh in all of y'all's mind what this whole thing is about. Breathing is Action, again, it offers super simple guided meditations that are made up of breathwork and affirmations. So the meditations are only about 5 minutes each. So that gives you guys, the listeners, the ability to customize the length of your meditation and as well as the messaging you're receiving from it. So an example that I really like to use is, let's just say your friend is moving out of town and that makes you super sad. And so, you like meditating, you understand that it's good for you, but you're not going to meditate for a half an hour, so maybe just 15 minutes. So you grab 3 meditations, they're 5 minutes each, you get 15 minutes. At the same time, you choose maybe one meditation that has affirmations that talk about loss, grief, loneliness, sadness. That's going to help you process a difficult emotion. And then at the same time, you want to feel better. So maybe you choose 2 more meditations, those 2 last ones. Maybe those are a positive mindset, confidence, resilience, community, reaching out. You have a well-rounded meditation that helps you to kind of customize your own regulation based on your needs. Everyone is going to interpret different life events in their own different way. And so with these meditations, you get to have agency over how you emotionally regulate. So let me just re-explain also why affirmations. And I think, I really want to talk about this because I remember giving bad advice when I was younger. I was in university and I was learning about psychology, and I really looked down on affirmations. I didn't see the impact that they could have. I really overlooked them as unimportant. I wasn't connecting the dots that, again, our internal dialogue, the way that we talk to ourselves, the way we understand the world, a lot of those thoughts and beliefs were shaped by outside sources. So we're going to have society, we're going to have friends, teachers, parents, all kinds of people, our relatives. You're going to learn things when you're at school, you're going to see things online, and all of this impacts your thoughts, your beliefs, and the way you talk to yourself. And so affirmations, really what it is you taking control over the messages that you repeat to yourself. You have agency to deliberately choose positive messages that you will then internalize over time. It becomes a positive inner dialogue that boosts up your self-esteem. And I think that that's very, very important. If you say affirmations to yourself once in your entire life, like, yeah, I'm a good person, but the rest of the time, thousands of instances of you saying the opposite, then your belief is going to go towards what's repeated the most. So I think it really is important to be deliberate in how we speak to ourselves and how we look at the world, and really keep an eye on the internal dialogue we have. Affirmations is a way to have some agency over what is being repeated to yourself over and over again. The affirmations in the meditations are going to address some of the emotional struggles that we encounter in life. And yeah, again, it's always to foster a positive inner dialogue. The other part of the meditations is breathwork, which is, again, really something that I did not take seriously. I understood through experience that meditation felt awesome for me. I really liked going to yoga classes and really taking that slow moment for yourself. And, I'm an overthinker, so it was kind of like putting a mute button, and I really enjoyed that feeling. But breathwork, it's more than just that. It is a very useful tool to help regulate the nervous system. So the breath work that's in the meditations They're going to be breathing exercises that really relate to the affirmations. But the whole purpose of breath work and the importance of it is to pause and to be deliberate with our breath in order to calm the nervous system. Right now, I am currently getting certified to become a breathwork professional, to be a breathwork facilitator. It is something that I'm learning right now. It is a certification that I'm doing online. What it's doing right now is it's kind of diving me back into when I was in university and when I was studying psychology. Right now it's like when you go back to the basics of biology, you go back to the basics of learning about the nervous system, I really enjoyed those classes too. And it's kind of like a really good refresh of that information. So I'm going to give you guys, if you're up for it, I'll give you a little biology lesson for you about the autonomic nervous system. Yay! All right, so the nervous system is divided into two. You got your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. All right, your sympathetic nervous system is the arousal. It's when you're activated. It's when you're ready for fight or flight. Being in this state, your body shuts off anything that's not particularly needed in the moment. So you don't need to digest, you don't need to heal, you don't need to do any of that stuff, but you do need to be ready to fight, flight, freeze, whatever you need to do to survive the moment that's at hand. Your body releases glucose, which gets your muscles ready for action. And your body can use the glucose, the energy, your body, your muscles, all that is ready for action, depending on what you need to do in the moment. Once the adrenaline has calmed down, your body releases cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And that kind of just plays in the background and keeps you in a vigilant state for a while. And so that is your sympathetic nervous system is there to protect you. It is there to get you to protect yourself or fight or run away if there's a predator or danger or anything like that. And so when you are in that state, again, you are not healing, you are not digesting, you are not processing anything. You need to be in the parasympathetic nervous system. That needs to be activated for you to do those things. So the parasympathetic state, which I'm going to call I'll call it a state of calm. When you are in a state of calm, that's when your body can heal itself. That's when you start digesting again. That's when you have good sleep. And the only way to stop releasing cortisol is when you have successfully returned to this calm state. And your body is ancient. So even though the world around us culturally has changed so much and it's so fast paced, your body is still functioning like it's in the Serengeti. It is ancient compared to our cultural standards of today. So if your biology, it still thinks it might be surrounded by lion or a tiger or a bear. Your body doesn't know that it's the 21st century, 2025, and that, you're not running from a lion, you're late for work. In the modern world, those predator animals are replaced by heavy deadlines, heavy workloads, being really busy, being overworked, being rushed, being late for something, getting into a car accident, getting into an argument with someone. This is how your body is made to function. If you really think about it that way, you weren't constantly being attacked by lions or tigers or bears. Those moments did occur, but otherwise you're not in that state. You're not in a state of arousal. You're actually the dominant state that we're supposed to be in is a parasympathetic calm state. We are supposed to be calm and at peace most of the time, and then our body goes into fight or flight when it really needs to. But otherwise, you're supposed to be predominantly chill. We're also hardwired for community, so being bullied or ostracized out of a group, that becomes a threat to our body, to our nervous system. And that's something that we have to really make sure we get out of the arousal state and back into a calm state. We should be spending most of our time healing, resting, and digesting. And, and I say like, physically digesting, but I also mean it in a psychological way. It isn't when you're being attacked by a lion that you're thinking to yourself, well, this means I'm scared and I'm scared of the lion. You can't process. You need to GTFO out of there. So it is once you're in a safe space that you can go, whoa, that was really bad, right? If we never successfully get to a calm state, then like we need to be able to process situations, especially in a world where most of our life is spent either online. For a lot of people, our lives are spent online. That is a psychological demand. And so if our world that we experience is mostly psychological, and we are always in a psychologically active emotional state, when do we actually get to process what we're living through, the situations we endure, the daily threats that we go to? A lot of people aren't taking the end of the day to relax. If anything, we're on our phones consuming news media that is outrageous to us. It creates fear in us. It gets us to react. Or we're engaging in cancel culture stuff and picking sides, left or right, liberal or conservative. We are so rarely in a calm state, in a parasympathetic state these days that, like, yeah, but we're meant to be predominantly in the state of calm. Without returning to peace and calm, we have a really hard time making sense of the world around us and really truly learning the lessons that life has to teach us. In a modern world where like there's so much outside influences like news media and like clickbait, outrage news, or social media where we're comparing ourselves to each other, these things are meant to grab your attention. They're it's so rarely for our benefit, I find. And at the same time, I really find it important to be aware of what's going on in the world around you. But I feel like I'm left deciding, do I want to be happy or do I want to be informed? Sometimes I really have to wait if I'm ready to learn about the world, if I can emotionally handle it. Do I have the mental, emotional capacity to handle reading the news or going online on social media? I really, really have to make sure that my social media hygiene, where I really, really curate what I'm consuming, because I can't just consume what's being put out there anymore, because it pulls me left and right, and I don't feel great at the end of the day. Yeah. So we have to regularly practice going back into a calm state. It's a simple thought or memory or something we see online, like that can get us straight into in an activated state, or it gets us feeling anxiety or fear or whatever, or anger. And so when we're in an activated state, and all it takes is a thought or a memory. The same is true for the other side. So a thought or a memory or all these things can help us get back into a state of calm. And I think that's why there's a lot of push for positivity and gratitude, and because those are thoughts that bring us back there. But if you're like me and you're an overthinker, and or if you struggle with low self-esteem, it's kind of like the thoughts, they're not powerful enough to get you there. So the one thing that I really realized was that breath what got me there. That was powerful enough to stop the thinking. It paused the thinking. Meditation, time alone, sitting in silence. You become the witness of your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. You become the witness of it. It was sort of putting on the mute button in a sense, or at least practicing not going down a spiral of thoughts. I practiced the pause before going into my thinking, or following it, or paying attention to it, really. So the breath, it really helped. That was an actual tool that worked for me. And different tools are going to work for different people, but again, and as an overthinker, the breath is really what worked for me. So, and when you think about it, like the breath is really important because when you're angry or when you're anxious, it's hard to breathe. It's a little suffocating. Like your breathing actually changes when you're upset. So you can also use the breath to go back to at least reduce the anger or the stress. And that helps you get a grasp on a pause. And then that gives you choice. That leads to your choice. You get to choose in between, do I act out my anger, or do I, breathe and come back to a state of calm? And again, it's always about returning to a state of calm. That is what heals the nervous system. It's not never experiencing a bad thing, right? It's about returning to calm. That practice of returning to a state of calm, that is what heals the nervous system. That's the most important part. Again, life is life. It's going to happen to you. So it's not about never experiencing bad things. It's about returning to peace as soon as you can. All right, let me refresh for everyone what the podcast goals are. So the podcast goals are affirmations to help you self-regulate. The themes are inspired by the valuable life lessons that we get from the different stages of life. So the emotional developmental needs of a human being throughout their lifespan, I use them to inspire the different meditations because they just reveal so many gold nuggets of life lessons that we can learn as we mature. And again, the purpose to self-regulate, the earlier we are self-regulating, the earlier that we are relating to ourselves in a loving way, the earlier that we are choosing healthy coping mechanisms, the earlier it interrupts patterns of trauma. It stops generational cycles of trauma. That helps humanity as a whole. And it's just, I think it's good and everyone benefits from it the earlier that we do that. I am beginning at the beginning of the lifespan. So chapter 2 tackles the developmental needs of infancy, or themes or obstacles or challenges that we face during infancy. And so chapter 2 I have titled Innocence. So an example of how I use infancy to inspire affirmations that we can use as valuable life lessons as we develop and grow. One of the meditations is on vulnerability. And the logic behind that is that infants completely rely on their caregivers, their environment, their family, their babysitters, their relatives, all of that. They hand over their safety, they hand over their needs, and they are desperately hoping that you will have their best interest at heart. That is extremely vulnerable when you think about that. And it shapes their ability to trust in other people. And a lot of people view vulnerability as a weakness, but in reality, it's actually a strength, right? Someone who is able to really open up and talk about their emotions, they're risking being rejected. They're risking people laughing at their feelings. It is extremely hard to be vulnerable, especially in a society that values hardness and, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there. So, someone who has learned to keep their vulnerability intact, but to do so responsibly is really beautiful. And I think that's a life lesson to learn from. Another example is, consistency. Like, again, infants are handing over their needs for protection, safety, food, survival. They hand that over to someone hoping that that person is a safe person. So learning about consistency, learning about reliability, these are important life lessons to gain from, and that I can put into meditations and that we can process. And I think it's a valuable life lesson from the lifespan. When we grow up and we are trying to identify, healthy friendships, healthy relationships, one of the important things is that person reliable? Are they consistent with their care for me? Are they consistent with their ability to consider my feelings and my perspective? Are they consistent in showing up for me? These are incredible life lessons for people, not just in infancy, but through all walks of life, really. So I'm just revisiting different parts of the lifespan, gain inspiration, create affirmations and meditations that help people self-regulate and process. So these meditations, again, they're meant to be a form of emotional connection and support to whoever needs it. So it's like a long distance co-regulator. It's just to show that connection can happen at any point, at any time. Connection with someone else can happen, or just connection in general can happen whenever. So it's not just when we're face to face with someone and they're validating our experience. Like, yes, it is a wonderful connection, but that's not only when it happens. If you're walking outside and you hear the leaves rustling through the wind and the birds are singing and you have this wonderful feeling, that is a connection. If you are listening to a comedy sketch and it's one of your favorite comedians and you love the jokes he makes and he really makes you laugh and you get to rest for a second and you're just feeling great about that, feeling the relief of just having a laugh, that's connection. Connection is everywhere. Your favorite mug is a form of connection. It's everywhere, but this is like a long distance co-regulator offering out a hand and offering out support, even though we're not in the same room together. This podcast is a regulation tool that you can add to your toolkit. And, you add this to your already existing self-care routine. You can add it to your healing routine. You can take these meditations or any of the information that you learn here, that you gain from, and you can bring them up with your therapist and you can expand on them in therapy. And you can really these meditations are a starting point for your own research that that you can research on your own, that information that you can expand on, you can further your understanding. It's really just a starting point for self-exploration. And there's a lot of people out there that can't afford therapy. So this is free resources for you to use as you see fit. This podcast is also, it's made for people who enjoy time in solitude. It's for people who understand the importance of a calm nervous system. And it's important for people, it can be an important tool for people who want to process their emotions at their own pace and in their own way, right? And again, different situations, people are going to interact with them differently. So you really get control over how you process things, how you regulate, and you have complete agency over the content that you consume online, right? If there's anything you don't like about these meditations, there are some concepts on here that you don't jive with, that you don't like, then don't listen to it. You don't have to agree with it, and you choose what you consume online. That is totally up to you. You have complete agency over that. And I'm just offering free support based on my life experiences and my knowledge. And that's it. So I'm going to go into the chapter, and I'm going to talk a bit about the different meditations that I made for chapter 2. So again, just really quickly, chapter 1, it was basic emergency emotional attunement for someone that's in distress. So we had self-love, right? The building blocks of self-esteem. We had navigating some challenging emotions like anger and sadness, navigating sadness as well. And then, of course, resilience, to sort of give someone, the light at the end of the tunnel, a sort of like a, picking yourself up after hard moments and looking forward and towards the future. I really wanted to make that one first. I dedicated that first chapter to someone in my life. Privately, I had dedicated it to someone in my life who was going through a difficult time. And yeah, I I don't know if they know, but sometimes I feel like in the moment I don't always say the right things, and I don't really know how helpful that I am, or how helpful I can be. But I do feel confident about the content I'm making here. But really, that first chapter was dedicated to someone I love very much, and they were going through a rough time, and I really hope that I did help, and I hope that if they ever fall upon the first chapter, just it's all love. All love. Yep, so now I can move into chapter 2. So, chapter 2, titled Innocence, because it is gaining inspiration from infancy, the developmental needs of infants. If you're into child work, this is right up your alley. This is going to be pretty useful, this chapter. But before I head into explaining chapter 2, I do want to have a full disclaimer. I am not an expert. I did not officially finish my university degree, right? I quit before I was done, which is heartbreaking to think about. So we won't think about that. So I don't have a university degree. I might go get that. I might finish that up at some point, It's expensive, but I'll do it. And I don't have formal training in breath work yet. I am currently trying to get certified online for breath work and meditation, but it's a process. It's a process. Right now, these are just passions in my life. I do a lot of research on it. It's a huge passion of mine. But as it is, I'm just some random lady on the internet with a basic, incomplete education in psychology and an interest for meditation and breath work. That's it. That is it. So, again, if any of these concepts or ideas don't jive with you, please do your own research. Please cultivate your own perspective and understanding. There is zero obligation to do these meditations. You have complete agency over the online content you consume. Right? This is an offering that I am making to the community, to humanity at large, but there is no pressure, no obligation. And this is really just coming from my own life experience. And I think that, I really believe in people talking about their experience, sharing their wisdom. It doesn't have to be perfect. Really, it comes from a great place. I do a lot of research. I'm confident about it. But, no matter what, everyone is different. So there's stuff that I'm going to do. It's not going to apply to everyone. I don't expect it to. So if it doesn't apply to you, if it doesn't speak to you, I'm not going to take it badly. You have to do what's right for you, and you know yourself best. I will always, always, always advocate that, even though I can be stubborn sometimes, and I'm like, I know what I'm talking about. You know yourself best. You know yourself best always. So even if I'm like, hey, affirmations are great, and you're like, no, I'm not here to argue, really. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you, and I respect that. I really do. I genuinely do. And I work on this part-time. I have other projects. I have other roles and responsibilities in my life. I have other things. And so these get churned out a little slowly. I put them out one by one. Again, I do a lot of research. I think about things. I'm meticulous when I create them. I really want to be careful about that. So I really want them to come from the heart. I really want them to come from a good place. And, I'm not just churning them out to make a buck. And I really want them to stay that way. I really want to really take my time with them. It's something I do for fun. Believe it or not, I'm having fun. So they're completely free. Again, I'm not making a paycheck on this, and I don't want to. I think there are so many people in this world. There's so many people that really need access to therapy, for example, and they can't afford it. They're living paycheck to paycheck. They're working 2 or 3 jobs. They're a single parent with a whole bunch of kids. Maybe they're adolescents, and they're juggling schoolwork, and they have to pay their rent, so they're working, and they also have social lives and family lives, and they're juggling all of that. They don't have time necessarily. I would always advocate that you go to a therapist first and foremost, if you can, but we have to realize that that is, in a way, that's a privilege, and if you can afford it. And so, yeah, I'm doing my best with what I got. There's just a whole portion of the population that don't have access to resources, and that breaks my heart. Breaks my heart. So that's why I want these to remain free and done with care. There's going to be a whole bunch of opportunities for me to create a career with my passions. I do see a future where I do have a career regarding mental health. Once I'm certified, I've finished my education, once I've done all that. Yeah, it's just not with this project, and it's just not for right now. That's it. But I'm building, I feel like I'm building my life to really represent what my interests are, where my priorities and my values are, and this is really important to me. I am also not here to have a large following of people. I'm not here to be an influencer. I really don't give a poop about being famous or being well known. In fact, keep that far away from me. I do not want that. And I'm just making this project so maybe someone in a couple of years from now falls on this library and it helps them out in some way, right? And at the very least, it's helping me process a lot of stuff in my life. So it's already worth it as it is. I really don't need it to be more than that. This is something that I really believe in. This is really aligned with who I am as a person. I'm not an expert podcaster. I'm learning as I go. Literally, every meditation I put out, I learn something new about the recording process or editing or something like that. This is all new to me. I'm surrounded by unknowns. I learn every time I make one. So as long as I'm having fun with this, as long as it continues to fill me with purpose, I will keep making them. All right. I think I can go into chapter 2 now, and to reveal the meditation. So again, chapter 1, self-love, anger, sadness, resilience. 4 meditations for chapter 1. Chapter 2, this is about infancy and the life lessons that we get from infancy. I have thought of 9 meditations. I just want to, just a little note that things might change over time. I might rename some meditations. I might change the content. So the things that I'm saying now, they could be subject to change. I think I've pretty much mapped out everything and figured it out. But yeah, I just reserve the right to make changes because it's my project, and I'll change it if I want to. All right, so the 9 meditations are, let me go through them. Consistency, feeling seen and heard, having a voice, the importance of play, new experiences, navigating fear, vulnerability, identifying safe people, and self-soothing. So I'm going to go through each one real quick just to explain why those are the life lessons I chose to go with in terms of chapter 2, the meditation on consistency. So this is, when we are infants, this is how we develop trust. An infant is entirely reliant on the parent for support and survival. It finds safety in a caregiver that is reliable, stable, or at the very least predictable. And as we grow older, consistency and reliability, those are important qualities that we look for in a partner or in our friendships. It's something important also to cultivate within ourselves so that we can be safe people for others. There'll be the number 2 meditation, feeling seen and heard. So even in adulthood, the desire to be acknowledged and to have someone consider our emotions and have someone consider our perspective, it is very important. It's a fundamental need for feeling connected to others. And if our needs and our well-being are recognized and honored by another, that is amazing for our self-esteem. When we feel acknowledged and understood and important to someone, that's good for our self-esteem. And it's also helpful to develop communication skills and healthy social development, right? The meditation 3 is having a voice. So when you're an infant, you can only express your needs through crying, right? Infants don't have words to express or even understand what they need, which is heartbreaking. There's like a powerful lesson here for us to learn about pushing through the discomfort of vulnerability or being scared, and for us to really connect with knowing what our needs are, knowing that they're important and worthy of being voiced out loud. So asking for our needs to be met is an incredible skill that infants do naturally, but this is a skill that can be learned at any age. The meditation number 4, the importance of play. That's a fun one. So as infants, we learn through play. We learn about the world, we learn about other people, we learn about ourselves through play. And as adults, playing becomes less about understanding the world, right? Because we think we know it all by now, right? But it becomes more about learning about ourselves. So, what brings us joy? What fills our cup? What makes us feel good? What gives us the capacity to be rested, to effectively tackle the rest of the responsibilities or the harder parts of life? But the reality is that we can use play to continue learning about life, just like infants do. The thing is that when a child is parentified, so when it's made to have adult responsibilities very early on, if kids grow up too quickly or they encounter trauma really early in life, if they really have to learn the hard lessons in life too early, it really stunts the emotional development and limits the capacity to learn healthy coping skills. I can't stress enough how important playing is in all stages of life, particularly in infancy, but it can add a whole different quality of well-being to life at later stages. Meditation number 5, new experiences. For infants, everything is new. So there's so much wonder and awe and magical, it has a magical quality to it. Everything is new. And we see that because the smallest things that we take for granted, they find really fun. And I remember I made my nephew laugh so much by crinkling up a plastic bag. I was crinkling up a plastic bag and he was losing it. He thought that was so hilarious. So, that's so much fun to consider looking at life, looking at old things through new perspectives. A mug is just a mug, but it could be something else too. It can mean so much more. We can experience it in different ways. Or, if we use our mug to sip our water, and really experience sipping the water as if it was the first time we were sipping water, like stuff like that. The other side to everything being new, like infants, they're sort of like a blank slate in a way where they don't know what to expect. They don't understand what life is all about. So that could be magical and awe and wondrous. And also it can be a little scary and confusing. You're combining scary and wonder. So life for infants is often a roller coaster ride, right? Which can also be invigorating, right? We experience things in new ways, but we also have a little bit of fear because we don't know what to expect. So it's kind of like a fun, exciting, scary in a way. And I think that this is just an interesting life lesson to consider. Meditation number 6, navigating fear. A big challenge in infancy, again, is everything is unknown. And there's a lot of uncertainty, and that can be quite frightening. And there are a lot of things that happen in our lives that we experience. Everybody experiences different things, and that brings up fear and insecurity. A lot of the times we think that other people haven't gone through it. It's hard to talk about. So this meditation will tackle the challenging experience of fear and how to, and potential ways of how to navigate it. Meditation number 7, vulnerability. I mentioned this earlier. A key challenge for infancy is just how vulnerable they are and how reliant they are on their caregiver and their environment for their needs and for their protection. And often we see vulnerability as weakness, but in reality, it can be a strength. If it is done responsibly, because you can't just, I don't know how helpful it is to be too vulnerable, and you need to be a little bit selective of who you're vulnerable with, right? Meditation number 8, safe people. So learning to identify safe people so that you can be vulnerable. This is an important skill to have. In infancy, you're reliant on your caregiver and you hope that they are a safe person, that and that your safety and your needs are at the forefront of their mind, a priority for them. It's very hard to identify safe people because even safe people make mistakes sometimes, right? So if someone is generally reliable and then once in a while, it comes out that they're not, or they make a mistake or something like that does happen. And sometimes it is difficult to identify safe people. So I hope this meditation really helps people to sort of identify and seeing the patterns of what makes someone safe and what doesn't. And then finally, the last meditation 9 on self-soothing. So self-soothing is our ability to create safety in the body. This is a particularly touchy one for me because it's a touchy one for modern society right now, which often expects infants to self-soothe in their first year of life. Self-soothing can occur when you have a well-developed prefrontal cortex, the ability to recognize and understand your needs, and the ability to take the appropriate actions to meet them, which none of these things are accessible to infants. And there's even a whole bunch of adults that do not know how to do that. So real self-soothing, it's not the performance of calmness, okay? It isn't just looking calm. Self-soothing is having the internal experience of safety. It is being able to reduce stress in a stressful moment and then fully returning to a state of calm after. And again, so many adults have difficulty regulating their responses and being able to cope with their emotions in healthy ways. That's why we have things like avoidant behaviors, addictions, workaholism. Some people even resort to manipulation and violence in order to cope with their emotions. So all of these are outwards expressions of dysregulation. Many, many, many people look calm on the outside and they appear to function well. But inside, they are riddled with anxiety and depression. That is not self-soothing. Self-soothing is the internal experience of calmness. So, I really hope that this meditation in particular, I can't wait to dive into it, and I really hope that it's useful for a lot of people out there. And this is super exciting for me. I love this stuff. And as I'm a relatively new mom, I have a young child, and parenthood was really an interesting time for me. I studied psychology, and one of my favorite classes was lifespan development. So infancy, all of this stuff it's right up my alley. I love this stuff, and I really I believe through my own experiences with parenting, I believe infancy is one of the most important parts of development. It is our foundation. It's where we begin our journey in life on this planet. And it's, the circumstances we are born into, they affect the building blocks of who we are and how we're shaped by the world. So during this time, in infancy, you're not necessarily making like intellectual memories that you remember as like the way that we have memories as adults, but we're definitely storing memories in our body. Infants are all biology. You're building up your nervous system. And there's more and more research that shows that trauma is not just memories in our heads, it's stored in the body, it's stored in our nervous system. So there's a lot of people that can address traumatic memories. They address the traumatic events that happened in their life through therapy, and they move forward with their lives, and they gain skills, but nonetheless they continue to experience somatic symptoms. So somatic is like, it means in the body. So you're going to have physical symptoms even though you've addressed and moved on from traumatic memories. So you're going to have things like digestive issues or chronic pain, startle responses, increased heart rate, blood pressure, insomnia, fatigue. Like there's so many things that you're going to continue experiencing because these are memories that are stored in your body, in your nervous system. It's not just something that you work through in your head. You also have to there's also some somatic memories that you can work through. And so infants are not necessarily making cognitive memories, but they are making somatic memories. And that's where the old saying sort of really applies here. Like, you won't remember someone by what they said, but you will remember them by how they made you feel. And yeah, so that's what I think it's so interesting to revisit infancy and to see what kind of life lessons we can learn from there. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other meditations I could be making that maybe I'm not thinking of. And again, like I have like chapters for the whole entire lifespan and beyond. So I'm going to be addressing a lot of them, but just for infancy, those are some of the ones that really stood out for me. Before I had my own kid, like I thought I would be like, before I was a parent, I really thought that I would be teaching my child about life and how it worked. And so much of it was the other way around. So, I was really open to what can my child teach me about life. And through my experience as a parent and through my child, I really learned the importance of vulnerability, the importance of safe people, the importance of being seen and heard, the importance of being consistent and taking someone's needs and emotions seriously. Through my child, I learned to recognize that crying is okay and that having a voice is important, being able to ask for our needs, and how to create safety in the body. Before, I really don't like to think about it, but before my child was born, I'm pregnant and, I wasn't diagnosed yet with my anxiety disorder. So they're swimming in cortisol, the stress hormone. They're swimming in adrenaline. They're in my body. We're sharing that. And so I really dedicated a lot in my parenting to repair some of the negative influence that I most likely had on them. And I think, without shaming myself either, because again, like life isn't perfect. There is no perfect childhood. There's no perfect parent. There's no perfect circumstances. All right. We all come down. We all come to this earth and we learn from our experiences. And that's a big part of life. Right. So my awareness of my impact on him doesn't come from a place of self-blame or guilt. I think accountability is a beautiful thing. Sometimes it feels really good, sometimes it doesn't, depending on what it is, depending on how aware I am also. But yeah, I think if all of us as parents can find a way to, be aware of our impact on others, on our children, to not come at ourselves with shame and guilt, but instead to approach it with soft accountability, compassion for ourselves, understanding of our story, but accountability and repair when needed. I think that that's going to create really, really a lot of change, meaningful change in the world. And it'll be nothing short of a miracle for generations to come if we can get there. So with all of that said, I present to you chapter 2, which is titled Innocence. These meditations are done with my own special touch and flair and are dedicated to the emotional regulation and attunement needs that I believe to be of utmost importance to infancy. They are also inspired by the different themes, challenges, or obstacles that we encounter during infancy. And again, a fair warning that the meditations that I've done, the order, the naming of them, the content as they get produced, that might change, but this is pretty much a good starting point, a good window to look through of the starting point of where chapter 2 is going. And I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you for listening. And I want, as always, I thank you so much for your support. So let's breathe together and be the change we want to see in the world. To everyone out there, I see you, I appreciate you, and I hope this serves you. This episode and all meditations in the chapter are self-produced. They are written, directed, recorded, researched, and edited by me. I do get editing help from my husband. I give thanks to all of my friends and all of my family who help shape this project into what I believe is a wonderful achievement. I hope you guys like chapter 2, Innocence, the second chapter of Breathing is Action, a meditative affirmation podcast for teens and adults, for everyone, everywhere. I welcome comments and feedback always. Breathing is Action can be found on Instagram. I am on YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, and of course you can visit the blog. You can also join the community on Facebook. I have a Facebook community page. So thank you for listening, and millions of hugs to all of you.